This episode is brought to you by the letter K. K for Kiki, K for killer, K for economy. Wait, what? That's right. The economy now has a K. That's why it feels like some people are living the Taylor Swift box seat lifestyle while the rest of us are living at a Dollar Tree store. Because if you squint hard enough, income, spending, consumer confidence, and all of that shapes a letter. And it's not a cute one. It's the letter K. And today, on Queer Money episode 619, we're going to talk about why America's wealthiest are shooting up that K, top line of that K, while everyone else, including millions of LGBTQ folks, are sliding down the bottom line. And more importantly, what the hell this means for your retirement, your money, and your stability, and your next money move. Hey there, it's David here in cold Ohio. Real quick, I want to tell you to skip the cliches when it comes to freedom. Invest in real mobility through the Optimize Portugal Golden Opportunities Fund. More about that from John in just a bit. So this isn't just an economy thing. This is why everything is more expensive, why your paycheck doesn't stretch as far as it used to, why your savings feels impossible to increase, why the system always feels rigged, and why more queer people than ever are talking about early retirement abroad, especially. Today, we're breaking down what the K-shaped economy is in the clearest way possible and what you can do about it. But first, how's the economy treating you? If you're listening or watching this on YouTube, we'd love to hear below how you're feeling about the economy. So, where did this whole idea of a K-shaped economy come from? Well, the idea came from economist Peter Atwater, who noticed something during the pandemic. He noticed that white-collar workers were able to work from home and their confidence shot up. Well, and we know what happens when our confidence shoots up. Oftentimes, we feel more empowered at work, we feel like we're doing more, and we shine more to those who notice and can help our income improve. Meanwhile, factory workers, service workers, healthcare workers, anyone whose job requires a physical presence, their confidence tanked. I mean, we know this. Many of them were out of work, and those who were working, especially healthcare workers, were stressed out completely. And so there was this split in confidence, this psychological divide. And it predicted what came next. Two completely different economics economies started to emerge at the exact same time. So that's where we come up with this letter K. We have one line that is going up, one section of the economy that is going up, and one section of the economy that is going down. High income earners are on that top portion of the K. People with stock portfolios, homeowners, people who already had assets, people who had good jobs, high-paying jobs, they were shooting up that K. While everyone else, low-income workers, service workers, renters, people without assets or people with not a whole lot of assets felt themselves sliding down that K, especially when we think about COVID. During the COVID recovery, people who were wealthy, they really benefited from it, right? They benefited from exploding stock market gains, rapidly rising home values, their ability to work from home, and in some cases, save on childcare and other expenses, their safety of higher salaries and better job protected them. Meanwhile, 11 million people were unemployed. Service jobs evaporated. Renters struggled. Wage growth stalled. Fast forward to 2025, and that K is not gone. That K is here for good. It's actually gotten even longer and sharper. It went from I guess maybe a lowercase k to an uppercase K, because that K is getting really big. But the interesting thing is that the number of people who are on the upper portion of that K are actually starting to slide back a little bit. So what's happening now? Well, let's bring in some data from the Bank of America Institute. This actually tracks spending of 70 million people. This isn't just surveys. It's not vibes from let's talk to people on the street. It's not what people are actually saying. It's actually what they're doing when they swipe their debit or their credit card. So what's happening? Well, overall consumer spending, it's up, which that's a good thing. It's up 2.4%. But those transactions are not necessarily up. So what does that mean? If people are spending more but swiping less, what's happening? Well, we translate that into people are actually paying more when they swipe and swiping fewer times. Now, there's some things that can easily kind of lead us to, some assumptions we can make. We swipe less when it's more expensive from inflation. We swipe less because things are more expensive because of tariffs. Coffee at our local grocery store has gone up by 40% in the last 3 months, all because of tariffs. We also have sticky prices. Remember when all those prices rose during the pandemic because of supply chain issues? Well, guess what? All those supply chain issues have actually been resolved. So why aren't we seeing prices come back down? That's because it's a whole lot easier to move prices up and show profitability for these companies, big and small, than to bring those prices back down, especially because it has to start with the people who are actually putting the inputs into the things that you and I buy, right? The end seller, if they move their prices down, but the person that they're buying that product from or buying products to put together to make their product, if they're not lowering their prices, well, then their gap between what they earn and spend in their company starts to shrink. And that's not a good thing, especially for small businesses. But the interesting thing is who really is spending this money? Where is the spending happening? Well, high income earning households accounted for 2.7% of that spending growth, whereas low income households accounted for 0.7% of that spending growth. That is a 4-to-1 gap. That means that individuals who are at the top, they are spending. Actually, we have heard and seen numbers over and over again that say that the top 10% of income earners in America are spending 49% of the money that's being spent in the economy. That means that the lower 90% makes up that other 50% roughly. And that means we're spending a hell of a lot less because we're in this area down here and we don't have as much money to be able to spend as those people who are at the top who have either high earning jobs or they have a lot of assets. They did really well in the stock market and have sold some of that off, and now they're able to spend some of that money. And where are these high income earners spending their money? How do we know this? Well, they're the ones who are buying the airlines tickets, the hotels, the furniture, the clothes, especially the high-end brands. They are still pulling money into those big high-end brands. Whereas a lot of individuals who were aspirational, they were saving up so they could buy that $3,000 bag or saving up so they could buy that $2,500 coat or suit. Those individuals no longer have the ability to save for that. That was the aspirational class. And now those individuals are moving down in what they're actually buying. Meanwhile, groceries tell another story about this. Low-income households have increased their grocery spending, whereas higher-income households have decreased their grocery spending. And that doesn't necessarily mean that high-income earners are spending less on groceries. It's just that it makes up a smaller percentage of their overall spend. They have a lot more money to spend, and so the grocery portion might be increasing, but it's actually shrinking compared to what the overall spend is. Whereas you and me, we're in that bottom half, and we're seeing our groceries go up and up and up, and now all of our other expenses are going up and up and up, but our wages haven't gone up. And that means groceries are making a bigger percentage of what we spend on. That's why so many people have complained about groceries and how much they cost over the last couple of years, because they can't believe at how much of their spending is going to groceries, and they have to make it up from pulling it from some other place. That may be from savings, and some people are putting on credit cards. It means you're putting less money away for retirement. It means that you're probably looking for deals more than you ever did before. This bottom leg of the K in real time are people who are doing things like rationing detergent, using more coupons, trading down in restaurant choices, juggling bills weekly instead of monthly. And the most concerning part of this is wages. Wage growth for low-income earners is growing at its slowest rate since they started collecting the data in 2016. But for high-income earners, wage growth is at its fastest. This is what inequality looks like in motion. It's not a chart. This is everyday life. We are all experiencing this, right? So why does this matter for the queer community? Well, typically, when there are inequities in an economy, it always hits marginalized communities the hardest. And LGBTQ people are experiencing this. We have lower average wages. We have high debt burdens, oftentimes because we are fleeing and moving to places where we might feel more safe. There's higher housing insecurity in our community, less financial support from families, especially families who aren't necessarily supportive of us anyway. We're seeing more career interruptions, a lot. I think the number was 65% of LGBT households had someone during the pandemic who was either fired, furloughed, or lowered their wages. And for many of those people, it put them in a spot where they were always behind and still haven't been able to catch up. We're also seeing more discrimination, higher rates of job precarity, and fewer safety nets. Economist Peter Atwater calls this a stacked vulnerability. We in the community oftentimes talk about intersectionality, but when it comes to the economy, he refers to this as stacked vulnerability. We may have a number of these things fighting against us. And it's not just our money. It comes to in many different forms. In our education, in our healthcare, in our childcare, job opportunities, in our own safety, personal safety, and community support. For those who rely on mutual aid or rely on the community for services, many of those individuals are finding that there isn't as many services or provisions available to them because the rest of the community is also struggling and not being able to give back. When someone's financial or economic life is already fragile, the K-shaped economy doesn't just push them down. It makes climbing back up almost impossible without radical change. This is one of the reasons why we're seeing more LGBTQ folks exploring early retirement abroad. If I can afford to move to another country where Not only is my cost of living much lower, but my health care is a lot lower, and I find safety, why not move? Especially if you do have somewhat of a nest egg. More LGBTQ people are seeking countries that have safer social systems. We talk about Portugal as being one of the top countries in the world for protections for the LGBT community. Lisbon and Porto have been in the top 5 of global cities as welcoming to the LGBT community. And it's not just the L's and the G's and the B's. It's also the T's and the Q's. More LGBTQ people are looking for low-cost cities in the U.S. and abroad. We're trying to figure out where can we go for safety, and that does cost us. But here's the truth when it comes to most financial experts won't tell you. A K-shaped economy punishes anyone who doesn't own assets. The reason why that upper portion of that K is getting longer, and I guess in some cases maybe thicker, is because it rewards wealth, not work. It rewards capital, not labor. So, if you're renting, if you're a late starter, if you're rebuilding after having to pay off debt, whether that's because you acquired it through, unfortunately, bad spending habits, or maybe because it was of a medical emergency, if you're starting in one of those places, you're starting from zero, you're competing in an economy that's literally designed to accelerate away from you. That's why we talk so much about reducing your debt, increasing your savings. There are so many things that we encourage you to do. Build that FU fund, that fund that says, I need to get out of here and I have the money to be able to do it, whether that's a job, a house, or a state or city. The other thing is investing consistently. Consistent investing is what actually builds wealth. Most people don't have a huge chunk of money all of a sudden that they invest. Most people build their wealth through small contributions. So whether it's $5, $50, $200 a month, get that regular investing happening. Get it going into an account, whether it's with a robo-advisor that is an easy one that you can use on your phone, or making more contributions to your employer-sponsored plan like a 401k, 403b, especially because you get, in many cases, a little bit more for your money when you put it in there, and some tax breaks. The other thing we want to encourage you to do is explore alternatives to the U.S. There's an opportunity for many of us to leave the country, and there are many places that we've been talking about on our series on every other week. We share another country that is a possibility for folks to move to, especially highlighting cities that might be a little bit more financially palatable to us, but also safe places for the LGBT community. In some of these countries, we're seeing the cost of living is 50, 60, 70% cheaper than it is in the United States, and they have healthcare systems that are much better than what we have. The other thing we want to maybe share with you is that the top isn't as robust and strong as we think it is. There is some fragility at the top. Even though the top of that K looks strong and those people are spending like crazy, Atwater said that he thinks it's more like the economy is more like a Jenga tower. The wealthiest households are spending all of that money. They're spending the top 10% make up basically 50% of all spending. But back in the 90s, that was 35% of all spending. So we see that they're spending more. But what happens if there's a drop in the stock market? If the AI bubble bursts? If there's a adverse credit event, think Lehman Brothers 2008 that started the whole Great Recession. What about geopolitical shock? I mean, every time Trump opens his mouth, there's a possibility that something could happen with the stock market and those individuals lose a lot of money. The other thing we're seeing is that there's a lot more layoffs, especially in high-paying fields. So some of those individuals at the top are getting concerned and maybe sliding down to the lower part of the K. But what happens if that top half collapses? What happens if the Jenga tower collapses? Who gets hurt? The people on the bottom. So what can you do? Well, we know that inequality is extreme right now, and we aren't going to solve this overnight. We can't wait for Washington. We can't wait for corporations to try to fix this. So what we have to do is focus on what we can control. We have to focus on how we are going to reduce the things that make us vulnerable and boost the things that make us more confident. So please, we encourage you to put more money aside for emergencies. Build those cash buffers. Reduce your debt. If you have a high interest rate debt, please work on bringing that down. It's costing you a lot of money, and that money could be going into building assets, saving money for emergencies, even building a nest egg so that you could leave the country. And then also lowering your fixed expenses. I know it's hard, but one of the best things that John and I ever did for our finances was to downsize our life. When we downsized our life, we actually had more confidence and felt more comfortable. We found more ways to have fun that were not as expensive. The next thing is to build your top half of that K. Again, consistent investing over time. Even if it's $5 a month, you're going to start to see that money grow. And it's going to give you a boost every time you see that number getting bigger and bigger. The other thing is to think globally. Remember, the US is not the center of the universe. There are safer, more affordable places all over the world, especially for many of the LGBT community. And those countries offer the financial breathing room that this US simply doesn't. We can't all afford to move to New York or California because those are the safest places that we feel in the country. We have to be able to live in a place where not only do we feel safe, but we're also financially safe. The other last thing we're going to encourage you to do is to talk openly about this with your queer friends. Queer people deserve spaces where we can do that without judgment. That's why we have this podcast. That's why we have our Facebook group. We want to encourage individuals to be able to talk about how they are building a financial life. Talk about the mistakes so that other people don't make them. Talk about the wins so other people understand and see how they can do that too.
Hello from sunny Florida. Like you, your IRA deserves better than bland. With Optimize, you can roll it over into the Portugal Golden Opportunities Fund, keeping tax perks, building wealth, and unlocking Portugal's Golden Visa. Click now in the video description to discover more.
Before we end, just again, would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. How are you doing with this K-shaped economy? Is it good? Is it bad? It's ugly? Tell us the truth. John and I have had some very, very ugly months over the last 2 years. We've shared some of that. If this episode resonated with you, if you feel the K-shaped economy in your bank account, your grocery bill, your paycheck, your rent, your stress, just remember you're not imagining it, you're not alone, and you're not powerless. So we want to encourage you to grab the Queer Money Kickstarter at the QR code on the screen here, or in the link in your podcast player, or in the link in the video description below, so that you can take a deeper dive into why and how it is that we need to push back against the system. And then one of the best ways to push back against the system is to reduce our financial stress. Join us next week when we are going to be talking about the best cities in France for retirement. And the week after that, we are going to be looking at or sharing some of the questions from a survey that we did via our email list. If you are not subscribed to our email list, make sure to grab that Kickstarter or go to careermoneypodcast.com and join there. If you love this episode, share it with somebody that you are friends with who also wants to live fabulously, not fabulously broke. And until next time, stay fabulous. If you want some more, watch this video on what made us rich, despite the fact that we started off with $51,000 in credit card debt, the housing crash, the Great Recession, and everything that Trump's put us through.